Now that we've had a brief introduction to the idea of event procedures and event handling, in this video we'll look a bit more closely at document events, and we'll take a practical example of how document events can be implemented within a Microsoft Word workflow. Let's go into the Exercises folder, and in the Section 7 folder you'll find a document called Document Events. Let's just double click to open it. And what we have here is simply a macro-enabled document. Let's go into the Visual Basic Editor. So as we discussed in the last video, to work with document events, you edit the code module of the This Document object. So we can just double click to open up the code module. And then we've got the two drop-downs at the top of the module. On the left-hand side we have the Object drop-down. So the only object relative to this document inside which we can place VBA code is the Document object. So we choose Document, and the program automatically creates the default event procedure, which for the Document object is Document New. To check which procedures relate to the Document object, on the Procedure drop-down, we can choose any of these options. The ones relating specifically to documents are New, which is the default, Close, and Open. You'll notice that there are several other event procedures available. Many of them relate to content controls. And we'll be looking at these in Section 15, Content Controls and Interactive Forms. Only 2 of the 3 document event procedures can be used with macro-enabled documents: the Close and Open procedures. The Document New procedure can only be used with macro-enabled templates. Any code you place inside this event procedure will be executed anytime the user creates a document based on the template in question. What we'll do in this tutorial is to create a little bit of functionality on each of these events. Let's start with Document Close. And let's say that what we want to do here is to verify if document has been saved. Let's say that we want to get everyone into the habit of saving a document before closing it. So we can put an if statement. So let's say if active document dot saved equals false, then, and let's say MSG box prompt : equals please ensure that you save documents before closing. And let's continue on to a new line and use the buttons parameter and VB exclamation. So this will just generate a friendly message. It won't actually prevent the user from closing, just a friendly reminder that the best habit is to save the document before you close it. So let's put it to the test. We haven't saved the document, so when we close, up comes our exclamation mark message box. Then when we click OK, the Microsoft Word interface takes over and we get the normal message, would you like to save? And we can say yes, and we're back in business. Let's go back in, and now let's move on to the Open event. So for the Open event, let's say we want to display document properties, thus allowing the user to verify that document properties exist. Let's say we're working for an organization where document properties such as title and author are very important, And we want to make sure that all our users keep this meta information constantly updated. Just to remind you where this information resides in the word interface, when we go to File, Info, here under Properties, we can go into Advanced Properties, and the meta information is displayed here. So let's take probably the four most important: title, subject, author, and keywords. And we'll display those in a user form. We'll read the current values from the system, display them in the user form, but allow the user to modify them from the user form. So when they click OK, we write the values from the user form back into the document. So here we simply need to use userform.show in order to display the user form, and then the user form will do the rest. So I'm going to call it FRM properties. So even though it doesn't yet exist, I can put FRM properties.show. And then we can go ahead and create it. So just right click on the project, insert user form. And the first thing I always do is to move the toolbox to the right. I don't know why. And let's change the name to FRM properties. Then let's change the caption to document properties. And the caption is just displayed at the top of the user form. In the next 3 videos, we'll be focusing on creating user forms and setting up the event handlers behind the various controls. So in this video, we're going to keep it very simple. We're just going to create 4 label and text box pairs. So just using these 2 controls, the label control and the text box. And we're just going to go with the default sizes of everything. So there's our label. Maybe the default size is a bit big, so I'll just resize that. Change the caption. So we had title. And then the text box to go with that. And then I can select both of these using the standard techniques. So click, shift click, drag, and then to copy them, I can hold down the control key and just drag down. Control shift doesn't work, by the way, it's just control. But the grid makes it very easy to keep them straight as you drag. So they're the 4 that we wanted to do. So we had title, subject, author. By the way, as you're doing this, if you accidentally double click, this happens. So we've got the current name of the label, and then the program has just automatically created an event handler for the thing I've double clicked on. So if this does happen to you, you simply delete the unwanted event handler, because we don't want to track an event for the label control, and then you close the code module. If it keeps happening, then instead of doing what I've been doing, which is to change the text in the control itself, just use the caption and just pop the text in the caption box in properties. If properties isn't visible, of course, it's view and properties window. So this one was the final one that we needed to change, and this is keywords. And this just needs to be a bit bigger. They're the 4, and I'm going to make keywords perhaps a couple of lines, just 2 or 3 lines deep. And while it's selected, let's just set the multi-line property to true, so that we can actually display several lines of keywords if necessary. And finally, let's create an OK button. So that's the command button control. and then just click, make the form a bit bigger to accommodate it, and then reposition it, change the caption, and resize it. So these are all the various controls. Now what we need to do is to name the controls. There are two approaches for this, by the way. You can either name everything, so every single control, the form itself, and everything you put on it has a name. That's a good philosophy to follow because it leads to clarity. And the second philosophy is that you name only those controls which you intend to manipulate with your code in some way, or which you intend to attach code to. The first philosophy obviously means more work, but in the long run it probably leads to more clarity, because if you don't name objects, then they end up with default names. So you end up with a mixture of default names and your names, which can be a bit confusing. So in these videos, I'll be naming everything in the interest of completion and clarity. So these four are all labels, and the prefix I'm going to use for labels is the common one, LBL. So LBL title, LBL subject, LBL author, and LBL keywords. Then we have text boxes. We'll use the prefix TXT, TXT title, subject, author, and keywords. Finally, the command button, CMD.